Good morning and welcome to Business Morning. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwa. We tee off from the global oil market space as prices rose this morning, extending gains from the previous session as a hurricane disrupted U.S. offshore oil and gas production, and an industry report showed a big drop in U.S. crude stockpiles. Brent crude was trading up 15 cents at $40.68 a barrel, while U.S. crude gained 80 cents to $38.46 a barrel. Both contracts rose by more than 2% on Tuesday. More than 25% of U.S. offshore oil and gas output was shut, and export ports closed on Tuesday as Hurricane Sally sat just off the U.S. Gulf Coast. That is likely to help reduce stockpiles, although refineries were also shut down, cutting demand for oil. Data from industry group, the American Petroleum Institute, showed on Tuesday that U.S. crude oil inventories fell by 9.5 million barrels last week, although gasoline inventories increased. Analysts had expected oil stocks to increase by 1.3 million barrels. Official data on U.S. stockpiles is due out later today and often conflicts with the industry figures. Meanwhile, oil producers and traders are painting a bleak picture for a recovery in fuel demand globally as the COVID-19 pandemic rages on, hammering economies. And as the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic continues to take its toll on the Nigerian economy, a 10% increase in form of loans by deposit money banks to the agricultural sector is being canvassed by the central bank to put the nation's economy back on track. The governor of the central bank, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, who made the suggestions at the 2020 Bankers Conference, lists the potentials of the sector to include the attainment of self-sufficiency in food production and foreign exchange earnings.
It's 6 months since the coronavirus was declared a global pandemic by the World Organization, but its impact continues to be felt in all sectors of the economy. While latest statistics from the central bank shows that the lockdown of schools, hotels, and restriction of movement has led to contractions in the transportation, accommodation, construction, and education sectors, members of the private sector agree that all hands must be on deck to change the narrative.
The banking sector, no doubt, has a pivotal role to play. Indeed, banks, often called the lifeblood of the economy, are generally responsible for the efficient allocation of resources, which is a forerunner to wealth creation and, in turn, economic growth and development.
Although the past months has seen recent interventions by the Apex Bank through the disbursement of stimulus packages to the manufacturing and pharmaceutical sectors, government officials are wooing the banking sector to increase lending to the agriculture sector to improve food production.
Over the next 4 years, the banking sector should consider ways under which it could increase its loans to the agriculture sector from 4 to at least 10% by 2024.
Today, as bankers and as fund managers, we stand in a position to partner with government in its efforts to diversify the economy, reposition the country for a sustainable future. Therefore, you must redouble your efforts to mobilize domestic resources, to attract foreign investments, to create quality job opportunities for our teeming youths, and to lift a lot of Nigerians out of poverty.
Putting the nation's economy back on track for the post-COVID-19 era requires the contributions of all sectors of the economy. This synergy, according to experts, is likely to help reduce the economic recession being projected by the International Monetary Fund in Nigeria.
And talking about self-sufficiency in food, at least 450,000 hectares of rice farm has been washed away by flood in Kebbi, the main rice-growing state in the country. An estimate of the grain destruction is put at 25% of the previously projected national output of 8 million tons, and the damage could be worse as part of Kano, Enugu, Jigawa, and Nasarawa have also been affected. This development does not only threaten food security, but also questions the impact of the federal government's interventions in rice production through the central bank's anchor borrower scheme. Joining me now to look at this is the chairman and chief executive officer of Okun Rice, Dr. Biodun Onolaja. Thank you very much, Dr. Onolaja, for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Well, you are a rice farmer that has, you've experienced flooding, in doing your business. What was the experience like, and how were you able to come out of it? How were you able to recover?
Yeah, to God be the glory.
We are trying to come out of it, not fully. But when we were in Kogi State, we experienced it during the 2018 flood disaster, when we were doing the program. The flood was so much that it crossed across to Kwara State and affected us seriously. Even when we approached the Nigerian Agricultural Insurance Company for damages, everything like that, they couldn't do anything on that one. So an herdsman too came, attacked us, through the federal government, through the vice president, Professor Sheyi Oshibajo, we were able to move to Ogonsho River Basin, where we are now presently, in Ogun State and Lagos State.
All right. Now, the flood mainly in Kebbi and other parts of the country has been projected to lead to some kind of food shortage in the country because other crops, have also been affected. To what extent can the impact of this flood affect Nigeria's total rice production?
Yeah, it's going to affect us drastically this year. But the only option we have now is for us to go back to the farm after the flood to start replanting. That is for the people in the northern part of the country that are experiencing flood now. But we in the south and southern region of the country, we've not been experiencing flood. The rain has been ceased. We planted rice since June, July now. There was nothing to show about for it. So now that rain has started again now, so what we are trying to do now is to go back to the farm and replant so we can have enough food by the end of the year.
But do you think that whatever rice you're able to produce from this end, it would be sufficient enough to...
It won't be sufficient. The only thing federal government can do for us now to open the grain reserve and receive some grains for us. I won't say that they should open the border now is going to affect us. I would say that the federal government should open for importation of rice. It will affect us. It will affect the farmers. It will affect the rice processor too.
Now, we're talking about the border opening now. Well, since the border has been closed, yes, it's assumed that smuggling of this commodity rice has been curbed. But, there are indications that some people still, bring in this commodity one way or the other. Yeah.
The only appeal we have right now, because, we are moving towards the Christmas season now, for the customs and the security agencies to help us monitor that very well. So in order for us not to experience what we experienced 2 years ago during the influx of imported rice to the country that really affected us, we, the homegrown rice people.
Right. Okay, now we've seen a lot of government interventions to the agricultural sector, particularly rice production. And just yesterday, of course, we heard the central bank governor canvassing, asking the banks to increase their lending to this sector to 10% from
4.5%.
4%, yes. So what's your take on that? And how would it support rice farmers, like you, especially in dealing with the flood issue?
Yeah, it was a good development. If our commercial banks can do that. One thing is for the central bank to tell them to compel them to do it, but another thing for them to be able to do it. Not that they will not do it, but the strict conditions they will put on it, like a collateral, bring this, bring that, it won't take us to anywhere in this country as a farmer.
Now, even with the 4% that we're getting from the banks, what has it been like, accessing loans, from these commercial banks?
Only the only loans that we are able to get now is one that comes from the intervention fund for the federal government through the CBN.
That's the anchor borrower.
Paddy aggregator scheme for the Refund Rice Processors Association of Nigeria. Then from the Refund Rice Farmers Association too. Those are it's only federal government that is doing this agriculture very well.
Now, for you as a player in this sector in rice production, how would you assess this anchor borrowers program of the Central Bank? Do you think it has really done well?
That's really done well, seriously. Initially, when we started, they did get it right. But now with the method put in place now, getting the farmers directly, getting their numbers directly, giving them inputs directly is helping now.
Well, talking about inputs now, the issue of mechanized farming, that's what a lot of people have been canvassing for. So we have, there's no commercial farming,
Really,
basically.
you're right.
So how do you people deal with that?
Yes. Federal government, through CBN intervention, they've already tried. State government, they need to be fully involved. If we, the private sectors, can be mechanized. Each state in the country has the potentials. Each state governor has the potentials to be mechanized. It's one thing for state government to say them to give land to farmers. But farmers, how many farmers can afford to do land preparation, to do land clearing? To clear 1 hectare of a land, of a farmland, it costs about average of 250,000 naira. Where would they get it? So federal state government should be, see what Ogun state government is doing on mechanization. Ogun state government will give you land, they will do the land clearing for you, they will do land preparation for you. That is the way. The farmers cannot come in with their inputs, which through the CBN, through intervention fund, then they'll be able to manage the whole thing. All those hawkers on the streets, they can factor them in, and this will reduce the unemployment rate in the country. Each local government can do it through the state government. They can have a farm settlement where we can put all these people there. Let them work. If it's $70,000 you are paying them every month, it's better than for them hawking pure water and plantations on the road.
All right, let's look at the issue of the price of this rice. The major staple, I mean, everybody eats rice. And when the federal government came up with the idea of, look, we don't want this rice importation, we want to be self-sufficient in rice production. And so if we're able to produce enough, so we could buy this rice cheap, right? So, but time we have seen that even the local rice is to be even more expensive.
Yes. Demand is more than supply. It still boils down to us to go back to the farm, do proper mechanization. That's the only way out. Federal government can give money, but federal government cannot come to Lagos State or Ogun State to be doing the land clearing and land preparation for farmers. If you can do that, if you can go mechanize, you have enough food in the whole country. There is nowhere in this country that we can grow rice if there's water there. And there's no water, you can do tube wells, you can do boreholes. But no farmers can do it. It's state government intervention. Then to contribute what federal government is doing. Let them comprehend it.
Now let's come back to this issue of flood. How would that impact the agreement between Kebbi and Lagos State, for example, on the production of, we have lake rice?
Yes.
Yeah.
What I know about lake rice, Lagos State government is putting in their own mill now. I don't think the lake rice thing was during the last regime. But this government, I don't think they are doing that. And if they are doing it with the flood that is affecting everybody now, it will affect them.
Now, but is there anything that can actually be done differently to prevent the flood?
Differently, maybe by, if you know the prone areas where the floods are, you can shift. Because this thing has been happening every year. You can shift to some areas that are very arable and durable for planting.
For instance?
For instance, in Kebbi now, we know Agongo is a prime area for flood. They can move a little bit closer from the riverine area.
All right. So where do you see this development leading the country to? Now, do you see the federal government perhaps with this issue we're having now coming up to say, okay, fine, let's reopen the land border?
To open
do you see them doing that?
No. I don't think it's good for us.
Why?
To open the land borders.
Yes, now as it is, because a lot of people seem to be clamoring for that.
But if you do that, it will jeopardize the amount of money they've already invested on us.
But now you are not producing enough.
Yeah, we are not producing enough now. But aside, there's another food.
Like?
There's yam. We have beans.
How much of that?
Gari.
How much of that really do you produce? I mean, everybody eats rice.
But
you talked about we're approaching the Christmas season now.
Yes.
I mean, during this season, nobody talks about yam. Everybody talks about rice. Yes. So if we're not producing enough, so what substitute do we have?
Well, the substitute we have, but if they do what they do for maize now, it's going to affect the whole rice chain. If they allow the importation of rice now is going to affect the money that CBN has been giving out for us for this intervention. So the only way forward is for all of us to go back to the farm as the flood is going down. Then let us replant. Rice takes just 3 months to harvest. If we still go back now, by November, December, we can make it.
Now, I want to believe you have an association.
Yes.
What kind of engagement do you have with either the state government or the federal government?
We have a RIPAN, which is Rice Processors Association of Nigeria. We are the millers. We have RIFAN, Rice Farmers Association of Nigeria. Also, we have All Farmers Association of Nigeria. Those three parties, we work with the government directly on food supplies and interventions. But state government, I think they have their own way of doing things. But if you can work together with the state government, because the land belongs to the states, not the federal, and we are in different states of this country. If you are working hand in hand with the state government, I think it will help us out.
Now, going forward, do you think Nigeria can ever attain self-sufficiency in terms of rice production? And if so, how do we move forward
If
from
you are
here?
very serious, if you take agriculture as a business, if you take it seriously, in collaboration with the state government, we can get there. Like I said initially, the state government needs to be fully involved. They need to get tractors, they need to get bulldozers to bulldoze the whole areas for farmers to come and plant. That's the only way forward that I see.
All right, thank you
and
very
it has to be organized.
All right, thank you very much,
Thank you very much.
Dr. Onolaja. That's the chairman and chief executive officer of Okun Rice. Well, we'll take a break now, and when we come back, we'll still look at the state of the economy. To stay with us. And the Central Bank of Nigeria, its monetary, credit, foreign trade and exchange policy guidelines for fiscal years 2020-2021 released at the weekend painted a grim economic outlook, projecting inflation rate to rise by 14.15% by the end of the year. And just yesterday, the National Bureau of Statistics released the inflation numbers for August, and that spiked to 13.22%. This comes as Africa's largest economy faces a rising government deficit and broader economic challenges amid the coronavirus outbreak. It will be recalled that the federal government approved about 2.3 trillion as stimulus for the economy under the economic sustainability plan as a post-COVID measure. Let's have a conversation around this with the Chief Executive Officer, Espero Global Corporation, Dr. Glenn Abbey. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Abbey.
Thank you once again for being with you.
Nigeria's economic outlook looks grim, but what are your perspectives on the stimulus plan? Is it adequate to reflect the economy?
Well, regarding the adequacy of the stimulus plan, I would say this. Usually, when economies face challenges such as we have now, this kind of thing occurs, usually when there are major, upheavals, sometimes after a war or some other major disaster occurs. In the case of COVID-19, it exceeds the impact of major wars that have been fought. So the practice of providing economic stimulus plans is a global thing that has happened over time and space, and it's a good idea. Good idea, yes. And I've also looked at the figures. I've looked at the key areas of focus for the stimulus plan, and I see that it's a good idea. It goes well, but I think that there has to be more focus on sustained growth-enhancing intervention rather than mere palliatives. What palliatives do is solve the problem of the moment, but what growth-enhancing plans and strategies do is to build a framework for a progressive and accelerated and sustained growth into the distant future. So I suppose that is what needs to be done. Look at the sustainability factors in terms of the stimulus. How far into the future of our economic growth would this stimulus plan achieve? How far can it go? Can it go to create jobs for kids that are today toddlers, not jobs for people that are there now? So it means that it creates jobs today and has potential for continuing to exponentially create jobs into the future. So I think that should be the approach when we look at the stimulus plans and the nature of focus of a plan. And I suppose we can go further into that when we look at the various sectors of the stimulus plan. But that is my response to that for now.
Absolutely,
Yes.
Dr. Glenn. Yes, a number of areas are covered under this plan. We have agriculture, housing, renewable energy for off-grid power supply, and so on. Quite a number of them. So for you, which is key?
Good. I'm happy that you mentioned agriculture, and that's an area where I have conceptually developed lots and lots of framework over the past over a decade now and all that. Now, what I see that should be happening from now regarding agriculture should be not only the commodity-based production, but look at the entire value chain of industrialization. Migrate agricultural production to industrial production. Every developed economy in the world over time, over space, started its development through focusing on the agriculture sector. But what we should be looking at now is the future, not just producing food to eat, fruits to eat and all that, but what can still be possible with this product as it comes out of a soil? What are the infinite industrial possibilities of any product? And then, setting the industrial landscape, preparing the industrial landscape for it. So that is a major focus. That's a major focus that we should be looking at. I call it the vaccine strategy. That is value chain, composite industrialization and economic plan. That should be the focus on agriculture. And I guess that the economic advisory team and also the development plan, I think we can get to that later. They should be looking at things like that. How can we extract the industrial value from agriculture and play in the global marketplace with our agricultural products? In this case, it's no more so much as commodity exportation, but actually fully finished industrial products sold in the marketplace, and their origin is from the soil, because that is a plus. So that's what I want to be looking at. And any form of stimulus should be looking at that strategic and futuristic dimension as far as agriculture is concerned.
All right, now,
if you look at the other sectors, okay, go on. Yes, I'm listening to you.
Well, before you dwell on all the sectors, I want to take you on the strategies. You called it the vaccine, strategy. So how would you
I call it vaccines. I call it value chain, industrialization, and economic system.
Yes, okay, that's your...
Value chain, composite industrialization, and economic system.
Yes.
That is a model I've developed to address that aggressively.
Right. Looking at the strategies, how does it align with the responses so far of the monetary and fiscal authorities to the current challenges, given the recent macroeconomic data releases we have seen so far?
Well, I like your response to your question concerning that. For once, I see that a lot is happening regarding monetary policy and fiscal policy management, because I had previously, and before now, complained a lot about the disconnect, the lack of convergence of monetary policy and fiscal policy. But lately, at least in the past 1 year or 18 months and all, I see a lot of convergence, a lot of interaction between monetary policy and fiscal policy. I am saying this to underline this fact, for instance, that I've seen the central bank coming up with lots and lots and lots of intervention programs, so much that you see monetary policy playing well into the fiscal policy space, providing stimulus across a whole lot of areas to grow the economy, to create jobs and all that. It's like setting the monetary policy agenda and seeing how far the monetary side of economy can support the fiscal side. So as the fiscal policy makers come up with their policy strategy, their strategy, the CBN has been providing lots and lots of funding regarding that, which I find very, very impressive.
The federal government has put together a steering committee for a development plan called Agenda 2050. Well, you talked about your own strategy. Well, this agenda, of course, is to be headed by the Minister of Finance, National Planning, and of course, Mr. Atedo Peterside as chairman. What specific recommendations will you propose for the committee to treat and incorporate into the plan going by this vaccine strategy that you are proposing?
First of all, I want to commend the effort about another development plan. Historically, we've had a series of development plans in this country, right from colonial times. In 1945, the British colonial system, the government initiated a development plan, and it was a 10-year development plan. It was within that particular development plan that even the education sector produced the University College of Ibadan, which we have as the University of Ibadan today. It's a product of that plan. And then another set of plans occurred, and Tafawa Balewa came up with plans also, and so on and so forth. And then the time of the Yakubu Gowon, the plan came up which addressed the challenge of the moment, national integration, taking care of all our experiences post-Civil War and all that. And then thereafter, we had the Shehu Shagari came up with their development plan as well. And then thereafter, the military regimes of various times came up with. So we have always had development plans. And my concern is the continuum we can achieve from development plans, because precisely all the development plans are fantastic, have great ideas, but it appears to me that each government comes on and does not seem to place a lot of emphasis on the pluses, on all the fine elements of the previous plan, and seeing how there can be a continuation of such plans and all that. Under the Muhammadu Buhari administration that came up since 2015, the major, very important plan came up, and that is the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. And it addressed the problem of recession, thereby justifying the word economic recovery, right, and growth plan. Now, that plan is on ground. I want to see a situation where the current development plan, based on what this committee, the steering committee, has been set up to address, will look at the finest elements of the economic recovery and growth plan, integrate them into what plans there are available that are being articulated under the development plan that we have now, and seeing how it can actually not only grow the economy, accelerate the growth, and also sustain the growth, make the growth be, to just keep going as far into the future as possible. Now, coming back to the model that I talked about, we should be looking at the finest elements of our environment. And that's why we talk a lot about agriculture. So agriculture is a plus for us. We're not looking at oil anymore. So what I said about vaccines, which is value chain composite industrialization and economic system, is to create an industrial system, a formidable industrial system out of the agricultural resource base. Now, hardly do you find any other country in the world having such tremendous agricultural potentialities. So if we look at its possible industrial dimensions, we can have a formidable economy based on agriculture alone. That's agriculture. And then we look at other areas such as mining. And let me just say because a little, just to play the agricultural space a little to show you what I mean by this industrialization strategy. We have a lot of lead products, right? We have a lot of, in the northwest, northeast, and all that, we have leather production that occurs, okay? Hides and skin. Now, I had said it before, and let me also repeat. Now, in the east, in southeast, we have serious capabilities in terms of leather, using leather to produce shoes, belts, and so on and so forth. Now, we can have an economic collaboration between the producers of hides and skin in the north, northwest, northeast, and the producers of leather products in the southeast. And that collaboration will attract foreign investors that produce high-quality leather products. They come around and invest because they have seen that the raw material is there, the initial technical knowledge among these persons is there. So they come around and work with them and produce the best quality shoes, best quality bags, best quality leather products, and sell across the world. And it's a plus to Nigeria. It will be made in Nigeria. And that's just one dimension, one aspect of the value chain. And I'm talking about. So when you're seeing goats and sheep and cattle, you're not just thinking about slaughtering them to eat. You are thinking about, okay, beyond the eating, what would you do with their skin? And you end up creating another industry in entirety. That is just one. If I take corn, for instance, we look at all that can come out of corn. From corn, you can produce lecithin, which is a pharmaceutical product for the pharmaceutical industry. From corn, you can produce oil. From corn, so many things are possible. So you see that beyond buying corn on the roadside and eating or producing just as feeds for chicken, you can produce a whole lot of fine products that can be used in various industries, in the pharmaceutical industries of the world, and all that, and so on and so forth. That is the kind of value chain, composite economic development, industrialization value chain that I'm talking about. You see, all aspects of agricultural products should be explored to the point where the best of their industrial potentialities are drawn, and then we place the final product that comes out of there in the global marketplace. So it enhances the global competitiveness of our country. So
right,
as a matter of fact, the development plan that I expect...
Dr. Glenn.
Are you trying to catch my attention?
Yes. I'm trying to get your attention there. We really don't have much time. Before I let you go, looking at all the issues generally and the way things are panning out, do you think Nigerian economy requires restructuring, as some civil society groups have consistently clamored for?
Well, in Nigeria, the word restructuring is always a political expression. It dominates our lexicon in every discussion, but only the politically thought about. Now, you use the word, and I like that. I love that. You said economic restructuring. Even when people talk about economic restructuring, in the final analysis, look at their conversation, discover that it's actually essentially political. So economic restructuring is similar to what I've just mentioned. You see what I just said about what happens in terms of hides and skin, and the collaboration that can occur between producers of hides and skin in the north and producers of leather products in the southeast. You see, there's a collaboration. And then you look at what can happen also in the south-south, all aspects of fish production and all that, and then you're talking about turning it into fish canning and so on and so forth. You see that the economic restructuring that we should be looking at is a situation where state governments should focus on the industrial potentialities within their state. Rather than looking up to the federal government for anything, they should look at, okay, what industries are possible in our location? What is possible, for instance, in the north central, let's say in Plateau State, it's not what will be possible in River State. And what will be possible in River State will be what will be possible in for instance, Enugu State. So each governor or each state government looks at all industrial potentialities of their state and building them up to world-class standards. It is the collaboration of all of these efforts, putting all these together, that places the products will be placed as Nigerian products within Nigeria and also outside Nigeria in the global marketplace. So that is the kind of economic restructuring that we should be talking about. How economic activities, particularly towards industrialization and the potentialities that are available or possible within a given state, will be brought up and placed at the center and say, this is Nigerian. So you discover that we'll not be looking to the center for anything anymore. To say, oh, give us money, give us this and all that, because so far we have is Godfather kind of the economy, where we wait for the federal government to give money here and there and so on and so forth.
All right, Dr. Glenn. Well, it's a continuous conversation here. We really don't have much time to dwell so much on that. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts there. Dr. Glenn Abi is the Executive Officer, Espera Global Corporation. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you very much.
And for a review of Tuesday's equity trading and outlook, we have Temple here. Well, Temple, the banks defined the market today.
Oh, yes, that's because, again, two key reasons there. For the past three trading sessions, we've actually seen some key gains in that sector. You recall that some of those major companies that you have in that space, UBA, GT Bank, Stanbic IBC, and of course Zenith Bank, have got the qualification date. The qualification date for interim dividend payouts was yesterday. So you saw a bit of activities there yesterday. Some had to actually sell them because, again, those dividends or those companies are actually going to be maxed down for dividends, the ex-dividend, which is one of the key reasons why we saw investors buying them. So basically, that translated to a 0.03% loss yesterday in the market, and that's some kind of a 4 billion naira ex the equity capitalization, but we're still good at 13.3 trillion naira in the market. Look at the volume of transaction yesterday. FBN Holdings was the major actor in this space yesterday. It was down, though, in terms of share price by 1.96%, but we saw 51 million units of its shares traded of a value of 257 million naira in the market yesterday. So that puts together contributed to the 5% decline that we had in the volume of transaction, and of course the 9% decline that we have in the value of transaction here was basically 3.01 billion naira, still around the 3 billion region, 30-day average that we regularly get to have in the market. Look at the banking stocks I explained earlier. We saw some profit taking there yesterday. NP Microfinance Bank with the losers chart was here. It accounted for the loss that we had here. And of course, they had Wema Bank, Profit First Bank, profit taking his bank, and other key actors, as well as Zenith Bank. We saw some profit taking there. For those that know, it is actually the qualification for Zenith Bank's dividend. But we have Adequacy Allen joining our phone now. She is the Deputy Managing Director of AfroInvest Securities Limited. Thank you, Adequacy, for speaking to us this morning. Yesterday, we know the inflation number released. We saw a 40 points peak in the inflation for the month of August. How is that going to shape the market? Of course, how will it eventually define the quarterly performance companies? Because again, we are costing down to 3 at this point.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Looking at the inflation figure, like you rightly said, there's been a rise by 0.4% from 12.8 in July 2020 to 13.22 in August. I feel increasing inflation rate would for investors to start looking for opportunities that would benchmark something goes with inflation rate. And looking at the fixed income environment, average yield is about 3%. And if we look at dividend yield in the equities market, let me use Zenith Bank as an example. If they retain their final dividend 50 like we saying, and then the current price of 17 naira 20 kobo, dividend yield will be about 13%. So I foresee bargain hunting in the equities market. And look at the inflation means percent increase in price of goods and services. So it will not go in the real investors and companies. There will be more pressure on disposable income, which will lead to less demand for goods and services. It also means less savings, which will trickle down to investment. This will negatively impact the stock market because of can say that local investors now control about 60% of the activity in the Nigerian stock market. Right. And for companies, due to the less demand for their goods and services, revenue might decline as well as the higher cost of production, which will lead to less profitability. So my advice to investors now will just be to take strategic position in fundamentally sound stocks.
All right, Adequacy Allen, thank you so much for your insights there. Adequacy Allen is the Deputy Managing Director for AfroInvest Securities. You should try to take your position possibly ahead of this market rally, something that is common in the Nigerian stock market.
Well, we'll see how much bargain hunting we'll have there at the market. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we cross over to London. And back to you, Temple. Let's get a quick update from the streets of London with Juliana Olayinka. Hello, Juliana. Good morning. Well, we'll begin from the data front. Inflation across the UK has fallen sharply, all thanks to the government's Eat Out to Help Out scheme, right?
Yes, you're right, Chimese. It has fallen in August to 0.2%, way below the Bank of England's target rate of 2%. With the Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee meeting is taking place on Thursday, we don't expect there to be a rise in the amount of money pumped into quantitative easing or for there to be fall into negative interest rates. They're currently at an historic low of 0.1%. But the 0.2% is the lowest rate of inflation inflation rate we've seen in this country in 5 years. I'm going to speed.
I can imagine. Well, aside from the inflation numbers, investors also have an eye on the outcome of a two-day meeting of the U.S. Federal Reserve's Federal Open Market Committee. What's the mood like for them at the open?
Oh, the FTSE 100 opened lower this morning, lower by 0.4%. FTSE 250 opened lower by 0.2%. We are expecting to hear from Powell, the Fed Reserve Chairman, and I think investors in London are expecting him to keep a rather dovish tone.
And Thomas Cook is being resurrected as an online-only travel business exactly a year after the 178-year-old company ceased trading, stranding 150,000 holidaymakers abroad. What's driving the relaunch by Thomas Cook?
I'm not certain. We'd have to ask the Chinese company Fosun. Fosun were the largest shareholder of Thomas Cook before it collapsed, and they actually the intellectual property of the company for £11 million. And they have announced that they'll be launching online. We know that they have 50 staff already. Could be up even amidst the pandemic as soon as next week. I believe Fosun is still awaiting approval for the Civil Aviation Authority because, of course, when there's 150,000 passengers were stranded last year, it was the AA that rescued them.
All right, thank you very much. We look forward to getting more updates you later in the day. And in commemoration of International Literacy Day, declared by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, to promote the importance of literacy as a matter of dignity and human rights and to advance the literacy agenda towards a more literate and sustainable society, FMDQ Next General Film Markets Empowerment Program, FMDQ Next, had held a virtual event for children between the ages of 10 to 16 years old, with the Mid-Genius. On Friday, that was on Friday, September 11. This is in line with this year's International Literacy Day theme, which is focused on researching, on learning, COVID-19 crisis, highlighting the impact on children, the role of educators, and changing pedagogies in the educational sector. Joining me now to talk more about this is the Group Chief Operating Officer, FMDQ Group, Kodi Ugoji. Thank you very much for joining us, Kodi. Good morning. Hello, well, if you can hear, what exactly is this FMDQ Next initiative all about? Well, I get technologies teeth again. In the meantime, of course, talking about the debt and currency market, which lies within the FMDQ space there. Temple, of course, will give us the details of the trend yesterday, what transpired.
Yes,
Temple.
truly. Well, quickly, but before we touch on that, let's quickly look at the NASD OTC Securities Exchange. The third side of the market. It's impressive that they got some 1.1% gain yesterday in the market. Look at the volume of transaction, a whopping 0.02 million units of shares traded. This is something that you hardly get in this side of the on this side of the market, and that's valued at whopping 74.42 million naira. Now, how do we arrive at this? We have the some shares trade across one yesterday. Of course, that's really huge. 900 and something thousand units of shares of food concepts also traded at 9,500. And also, you had VD Group also trade some shares yesterday in the market. Put all of that together, which constituted or accounted for the 11 trade deals here. They all gave you 1.02 million units of shares we had. Now, let's look at the bond side of the market. These was a bit negative yesterday. I mean, again, we saw some at the mid-end of the there was a bit of interest. The 2027 paper, 26 paper, 2028. We saw a bit of interest here yesterday. That's why you have some 5.7 billion naira worth of transactions there. And of course, the 23rd of February 2028 paper also got some interest. But if you look at the 2050 and of course the 2049 paper, here we got some offers on the side of the market yesterday. It closed flat at the end of the day. 6 billion naira worth of transactions was what we got. Again, it looks like we're going to be having some offshore investors renewing their interest in the market. 8 deals in total. Yesterday, 27.32 billion naira basically was the entire transaction that we had in the market yesterday. Let's look at the T-bill side of the market. Treasury bills yesterday was basically not so much of interest as well, not so much of demand for some retail transactions on this side. 675.8 billion naira was exchanged hands here. But we know that yesterday we've got just one deal in the market, 2.5%, and of course for 1 billion naira, which exchanged hands across the 2021 paper ahead of the OMO auction that we're expecting tomorrow. Chimeze.
Temple, Kodi is ready now to tell us about the FMDQ Next initiative. Good morning, Kodi. So what is this FMDQ Next initiative all about, trying to incorporate children into financial literacy? Well, it's one of those things. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Well, on that note, we will wrap up today's edition of the program. Thank you for watching. I'm Chimeze Iwagu.